Y'all can see the title. It is time for another edition of AFC Power Rankings. I think this is technically volume 3 in the series on the channel. You can go check out parts 1 and 2 if you want. I think filming it now in August is a great time because round 3 is over and we're going into round 4. We already have the teams who have directly qualified. We know who are still fighting to get to the next World Cup. Now seemed like an appropriate moment to take a pulse check on how good or how bad everyone is right now in Asia. Now, in previous editions of this series, I went top 15. But you know what? I went top 20 this time. So if you guys don't smash the like button now, you are straight haters. We're going to start at 20 and go all the way up to number 1. Before I do though, guys, if you like videos about Asian football, if you want to see videos covering round 4 of qualifiers, round 5 of qualifiers, how Asian teams are doing at the World Cup, Asian Cup qualifiers, the Arab Cup coming up, all that stuff, make sure you are subscribed. On top of that, I have another video ranking the top 25 players in Asia, so there's a lot of good stuff to look forward to. Do yourself a favor and hit subscribe. Some of these will have very little explanation at the beginning, and then we'll get more in depth as this list progresses, okay? At 20, I have Syria, 19, Thailand, 18, North Korea, 17, Bahrain, and 16, Kuwait. So these would have all been my not ranked in the previous editions of my list. I'm pretty comfortable with all of these. Syria barely missed out on round 3 anyways. They got 6-point Asian Cup qualification. Thailand at 19, they fell a lot in my last edition of the list. They have not looked good since they almost qualified to round 3. They've had a series of either kind of mid victories or concerning defeats, such as against Turkmenistan in the Asian Cup qualifiers. I have North Korea 18, but you know what? I'm actually going to switch this mid video. I'm going to bump Bahrain down to 18, push North Korea up to 17. I do think North Korea is better than Bahrain. I don't know what I was thinking here. If North Korea got to play in Pyongyang, they probably would be 15th in my list, but hey, due to FIFA sanctions, they're unable to, so the reality is they're going to be outside of that. Bahrain, I just think are frauds. They've been absolutely terrible since the first window of round 3, and Kuwait, man, they got a couple good players. Y'all know I love Mohamed Daham. You guys know I love Yusuf Nasser, Yusuf Mashed. Like, there's a few gems in this team. I think they did better in round 3 than we all thought, but they're still not really good, and so that's why I have them just outside of the top 15, and speaking of 15th, and I can't believe I'm saying this because they were so finished like the last 5 years. China. Yes, I actually think China have proven that they're a top 15 team in Asia. Now, there's an argument for somebody like Kuwait, but why I couldn't put Kuwait here is Kuwait didn't win a single game in round 3. China won 3 games, y'all, including 1 game away from home. And some of the games that they lost, like Indonesia away, they were extremely competitive. They should have beat Saudi Arabia at home as well. Really, as long as China's not playing Japan, they're at least respectable. Not good. And I'm not saying China are a strong national team. I don't think they're going to make the next World Cup, but I don't think they're the laughingstock that many of us believe they are. Kuwait have better individual players than China. I think even Bahrain might have a couple of their all-stars, would be better than some of the better players on China. But guess what? China finished above Bahrain, and they got more wins than Kuwait. So what's the argument here? Kuwait didn't get a single win, y'all. If Kuwait had 1 win, I would have had China in 16th, Kuwait in 15th. Y'all, they swept Bahrain, man. Like, we got to put just a little drop of respect on China. We know they have the freshest kits in Asia, but they're also a top 15 side, narrowly by a toenail. In 14th, I have Kyrgyzstan. Now, Kyrgyzstan were actually 14th in my last edition of the rankings too. Why? Because I don't really think we've learned anything new. At home, these guys have the best home field advantage of any team in Asia. They beat North Korea. They beat Qatar. Probably the best result this century, maybe ever in Kyrgyz football history. But away from home, they're still one of the easiest wins in all of Asia. They were the worst visiting team in the AFC during this round. They're kind of a guaranteed 3 points outside of playing North Korea, which I know they came back down 2-0. But guess what? I already said earlier, North Korea couldn't play in Pyongyang. If North Korea got to play Kyrgyzstan in Pyongyang, it's probably a 3-1. So they are home merchants, but they also got more points and scored more goals and had some better fights than I think a lot of people expected in round 3. So I think they deserve to be in 14th. In 13th place, I have Indonesia. Now, Indonesia are also a team that did not change from the last edition of my rankings. And that's not because I'm an Indonesia hater, as many of you believe. It's because if we look at the peaks and valleys of Indonesia since my last rankings came up, the highs are pretty high and the lows are really low. And for me, it seems like when Indonesia take a step forward, they also take a step back. A step forward would be beating Saudi Arabia 2-0. I think it's their best victory ever. The step back would be getting pumped by Japan 10-1 on aggregate. Another step forward would be, hey, you did pick up the 2 victories you needed, albeit at home in Jakarta, against China and Bahrain, 1-0. The Bahrain game was much more convincing. They should have won 3-0. The China game, I don't think they deserved to win. I think they got lucky off a penalty. Then you get slapped by Australia 5-1. It wasn't the worst performance I've ever seen, but it wasn't a good game. So while I think they've proven that their ceiling is higher as a team, I also think the floor is just as low as it always was, back before they started recruiting Dutch players. So for me, Indonesia is one of the teams that I kind of have loaded in the chamber, ready to jump up in the rankings, but I have to see something in round 4. I spoke about this in a video I did with Michael Talks Football, which will be dropping soon, predicting round 4 on the channel. And I think playing Iraq is the perfect litmus test for all of us, because they played Iraq in the Asian Cup, they played Iraq in round 2, and now they're playing Iraq in round 4. So we can literally trace the trajectory and the growth and power of Indonesia over the last 18 months by virtue of them playing Iraq time and time again. But until then, I still think this defense is trash and they got to get it sorted out. At 12, I have Oman, who were not ranked, or I guess they were 16th in my last edition of the rankings, so they jumped up 4 points here. Oman pissed me off because they're not good, but they are very adept at not making critical mistakes. And really, that's kind of how Oman have survived, especially under Rashid Jaber. It was, don't make as many mistakes as the opposition. Let Kuwait shoot themselves in the foot, and then we're going to go on and capitalize and win 1-0. Let Palestine make an error at the back. We will take advantage, and then we will get points. And that's what they did, and they deserve credit for that, and they're through to round 4. But I think they're arguably the worst team in round 4. You can make an argument Indonesia versus Oman. I think Indonesia's attack is way better. I think defensively Oman are a bit more sound, basically because of how they play. And look, the fact is Oman had 5 losses in round 3, which is the most of any team that advanced. So any Omanis being furious that you didn't crack the top 10, you're not a top 10 team in Asia. Oman is solid, nothing more, nothing less. I'm moving on to number 11. And I do have Palestine. I was one of the last people to jump on the Palestine are actually really good bandwagon. And the reason for that is because as good as the performances were on the pitch, I was still waiting for some of those results to start happening. Because at the time that I recorded this in November, I think they had 1 point maybe. And it was against South Korea in the first game. So that was cool. But again, a draw doesn't make you a top 10 team in Asia. Now, since then, they beat Iraq. They beat Kuwait away. Like, we're finally starting to see the points on the board. And similar to my North Korea argument, man, I promise y'all, if Palestine had any semblance of home field advantage, they're in round 4 instead of Oman right now. And I know Omanis are furious that I have Palestine here because they're like, oh, we took 4 points against them and we're through to round 4 and they got eliminated. Bro, they're better than you. They're more talented than you. They don't have a home stadium, unlike you. Oman took 4 points against Palestine, and we can never take that away, but I'm always going to maintain that they got a bit lucky. And if it wasn't for a 98th minute controversial penalty, none of you guys watching, be honest, would be questioning me having Palestine above Oman. So are we really going to act like it's a hot take? I think Palestine are better because of a penalty kick? Is that really enough to say that Palestine absolutely cannot be considered better than Oman? Not for me. I think everybody in round 4 is happy that Palestine are going home. Breaking into the top 10 here, we have Saudi Arabia at number 10. They were 8th in my rankings last time, so they dropped 2. Why did they drop 2? Because, bro, they're just so mid. I mean, as a giant of Asia, to be this bad is inexcusable, and I've banged that drum so many times. I don't know how much more you guys want to hear me say about it. The second worst offense in the AFC in round 3, only better than Bahrain. It is shocking how offensively dead Saudi Arabia are. Now, they're not terrible. They still have a good defense. They're still pretty good at chance creation, but they have lost their aura. They have lost the fear factor. They have lost the intimidation. Nobody's afraid of Saudi Arabia. They're losing to Japan at home for the first time ever. Then Australia go away and beat them 2-1. Should have been by more in that game, if we're being honest. You beat China with 10 men, 1-0 at home. Like, there's just so little. Oh, I forgot the 2-0 loss against Indonesia away as well. Like, there are so few positives here outside of, like, potential youth prospects and Daddy Renard being back. But you know what? Even with Renard back here, even though he's more handsome than Mancini, arguably, I mean, I'm sure some females or men as well would disagree with that, he hasn't leveled them up. I think he's plugged a couple holes in the team, but this is not the finished product yet. This is a Saudi Arabian side that beat Australia in 2022. They beat Japan in 2022. They won the group in 2022, and they clung on for survival this time around. Even in the 2-0 win against Bahrain, they didn't even deserve to win by by that many goals. Bahrain missed 7 chances in the second half. Go back and watch the game. So Saudi Arabia, by their standards, are complete trash. And yeah, I think they're 10th. I don't really see an argument for higher. At 9, I have Qatar. And Qatar were also 9th in the last edition of the rankings as well. As you can see, there's a lot of like fluctuation at the kind of tail end of Asian teams, and that's because there's not much separating these sides. So I'm kind of going off of a recent form quite a bit here. But Qatar, similar to Kyrgyzstan, what did we learn? Qatar is still amazing at home. They're still trash away. They still have the best player in Asia, Akram Afif. They still love Spanish managers. Nothing has changed. As awful as they are away from home, losing to Kyrgyzstan, getting destroyed by Iran, getting destroyed by the UAE, they're still beating Iran at home. They're beating Uzbekistan at home. They're murdering Kyrgyzstan and North Korea at home. They are Jekyll and Hyde. Now, why are they above Saudi Arabia? For me, it's very simple. I just talked about it. They actually beat good teams. Who is Saudi Arabia beating? Qatar are beating Iran and Uzbekistan, and Saudi Arabia are beating Pakistan. Like, I'm sorry, there are levels to this. Qatar has a better CV than Saudi Arabia in the last 2 years, and it is not even close. At number 8, we have UAE, Qatar's arch rival. I had them in 10th last time, and they did move up 2 spots. Everybody thinks I hate the UAE. I just don't think they're as good as you think they are, bro. And I'll be honest, the main reason that UAE is going up in my rankings isn't so much that the UAE just went God mode during round 3. It's kind of the fact that Qatar, again, just so mid, in Saudi Arabia, the worst Saudi side we've seen in 20 years. And y'all, I'm still not convinced by the UAE at all. You should have lost to Kyrgyzstan away. The away game against North Korea was in the Middle East. That was complete bullshit. It should have been in Southeast Asia, or at least East Asia, because it's a home game for North Korea. But instead, they played in Saudi Arabia, and it's a home game for the UAE. This team just needs to just do something, man. They are so underperforming based on the talent of this squad. Not underperforming to the level of Saudi Arabia. That's why they're above them. They do great against Qatar, and I love to see a good rivalry game. But against the rest of Asia, man, they're never really up to snuff. Moving on to number 7, I have Iraq, who were also 7th in the last edition of my rankings. Today, Iraq have the same freaking question marks that they had back in November of last year. We have learned almost nothing. They are still incredibly reliant on Ayman Hussein offensively. A lot of their young players, Iqbal, Amin, Jassim, still haven't really stepped up to the level that we would expect. They've now replaced Jesus Casas with Graham Arnold. He came in. He got a good victory against Jordan. Unfortunately, it was in the final match day, and Jordan just qualified for their first ever World Cup. So I do think it was a moral victory for Iraq, but it wasn't the statement that it could have been if both teams were really going for it. And since the Asian Cup, Iraq still looks stagnant. They still look stale, out of ideas. However, at least to me personally, I would consider Iraq to be a scarier adversary than Saudi Arabia right now, and scarier than the UAE, and scarier than Qatar, as long as it's not being played in Qatar, and that's why I have them above. This team is still good. We're just not seeing it consistently. If the UAE had managed to beat Uzbekistan at home or beat Kyrgyzstan away, which is extremely difficult to do, I would have had Iraq in 8th and the UAE in 7th. But that didn't happen. Iraq did just enough. Yes, they lost to South Korea twice, but I think the red card really changed that. They did just enough for me to stay above the UAE. Moving into 6th place, I have Uzbekistan, who I actually had in 5th last time. I have moved them down 1 spot. Here's my whole thing for Uzbekistan. Round 3 is complete. You've qualified for the World Cup. History has been achieved, yet you don't have any historical results to speak of. You split the series with Qatar. I think that's what we all expected. You didn't beat Iran. You really need to get at least 1 victory there. You beat the UAE once and then drew them 0-0. Neither game was really the 0-0, actually, Uzbekistan were hanging on for dear life. In the home game, yeah, they were slightly better, but the UAE could have tied that game as well. Uzbekistan don't beat anybody good, y'all. They have a great system. They have a good defense, strong midfield, kind of wasteful offense. It is what it is. If we're talking about giant slaying ability, what data do we have to suggest that Uzbekistan qualifies that? They're not a giant slayer. They don't beat good teams. They are draw merchants if you are top 50 in the FIFA rankings. Now, nobody wants to face Uzbekistan. They are a good team. They are very scary to play. But please, I'm begging you, just beat someone who's good. Because every other team who's considered elite in world football beats somebody. If we look at something like South America, look at Ecuador. Ecuador beat good teams, man. Look at Paraguay, man. They're beating Brazil. They're beating Argentina. I don't know if they beat Uruguay, but the point is these are huge statement victories that say we are the truth. Uzbekistan don't have that, man. And I could have forgiven that had they done the double in the UAE and won like 5-1 on Ag. But 4 points in a 1-0 Ag victory coming off a pen in a game when the UAE had 10 men, that's not acceptable. It's below the standard that I have for Uzbekistan. And above them in 5, I have Jordan. Now, Jordan were 4th in the last edition of my ranking, and I took so much heat for that online. You guys can check my Twitter. You guys can check the last edition of the video. So many people said I was an idiot. They said Iraq were clear. They said Jordan were barely top 10. They said I'm a Musa Al-Tamari simp. I am. There were terrible accusations thrown against me. Well, now I'm sitting here with Jordan finishing in 2nd, and I gotta say, it feels good. It feels really good. The reason I'm moving Jordan down a spot, which sounds terrible, but y'all, I still have them as the 5th best team in Asia, for the love of God. I'm not saying Jordan are bad. I'm not saying Uzbekistan are bad. I'm not saying Iraq are bad. If you're top 7 in Asia, you're pretty solid, much less top 5. But for me to have kept them at 4th, or wow, even like moved ahead, they needed to beat South Korea. They needed to beat Iraq, and you can't get 2 draws against Kuwait. I'm sorry, but that was a bit of an L. Circumstance, whatever. I'll out a pen. I don't care. And when I'm ranking these teams, especially in the top 5, and I should have said this earlier, really even the top 6 or 7, I'm also thinking, how are you going to do at the World Cup? How are you going to do when you're playing good teams outside of Asia? And if I'm thinking about teams who have shown that they can be the underdog and they can make an Asian Cup final, it's Jordan. I can't say the same about Uzbekistan. Now, I would love to change my mind, and guess what? This is a fluid list, so it's going to be updated. As soon as Uzbekistan start beating good teams, I don't even care if it's in a friendly, at the next World Cup, whatever. As soon as they start doing that, oh, I think the sky is the limit. But they haven't done that as of time of recording, so I got Jordan above. Last point here about Jordan, even if we're talking about how to beat the smaller teams in Asia, who's better at that, Uzbekistan or Jordan? You can make the argument it's Jordan. I mean, they destroyed Oman twice. They beat Palestine 6-2 on aggregate. Nobody else even got close. They went away to Basra and had a good performance there, got the 0-0 draw. They went away to Korea and had a 1-1 draw there as well. Like, they have good victories, they have good draws, and they have, I guess, a concerning loss, if you want to call it that, to Iraq on the final match day. But again, circumstance, I think, kind of forgives that. Whatever. Let's move on. We're getting into the top 4 here, and this is where everything is separated by an inch. Well, except for number 1. But even number 1, I'm very disappointed with. In 4th, I have Iran, and I had Iran in 2nd last time. And that's because Iran have really let me down on the defensive side of the football. Again, thinking of how these teams are going to do against good sides at the World Cup, I am extremely concerned that Iran is going to concede at least 1 or 2 goals per game. And while I think their offense is still arguably the best in Asia, I think it's between them and Japan, but I think Iran have a better, definitely better strikers, and I think a bit more balanced of a forward line, whereas Japan are very winger heavy. The defense sucks. Baron Vond sucks. Galinoy doesn't want to play new players. So whatever possible solutions exist for Iran, they're not going to play until probably the 2026 World Cup is concluded. Like, we might not see new center backs until the 2027 Asian Cup. And until then, I just feel like they have a hard ceiling on how good they can be. Because you're essentially being forced to outscore and outgun everybody. Well, that's great when you're in Group A of round 3 of Asian qualifying with Kyrgyzstan, North Korea, UAE, and Qatar. But it's going to be a disaster when you have teams like France, Colombia, teams like Morocco, Algeria. That's not going to end well. So I still think Iran are a great team. And inside of Asia, if we're just talking about how they perform against Asian teams, I would probably still have them at number 2. They are a terrifying force inside the AFC. But we're coming up on the World Cup, so I'm thinking a little bit more international now. But even within round 3, like, if they had beat Uzbekistan one time, I would still have them at 2nd. But they couldn't get it done. So yeah, of the top 4 teams in Asia, I just feel like Iran are the most shaky. And in number 3, I have South Korea. And South Korea were also 3rd in my last edition. They've had 3 wins and 3 draws since the last ranking came out. Really, against Palestine, they were kind of mid, but Here's my main thing with Korea. They were the only team that didn't lose in round 3, y'all. Not only did they not lose a game in round 3, they were the only team that looked like they didn't deserve to lose a game in round 3. I don't know if anybody was looking at the Korean games or like, this was fortunate, they fluked this win, they should have lost this game. No. People keep talking about the first game against Palestine like Korea didn't miss 9 one-on-ones in that game. Like, no, I'm sorry. Palestine 0-0 doesn't qualify. They were in control in every single game. On top of that, if we're talking about how you do against good teams, which is very important for me in this ranking, they took 10 points out of 12 against Iraq and Jordan. I'm being so serious. How many other teams take 3 wins and 1 draw in 4 games, 2 home, 2 away, against Jordan and Iraq? Does Iran take 10 points there? Maybe. Does Uzbekistan give me 10 points there? I don't think so. UAE? Is UAE going to travel to Oman and beat them 2-0? Can the UAE get a 2-0 victory in Basra? How about Qatar? Could Qatar do anything away? Qatar could probably beat them at home. I mean, they beat Jordan at home in the Asian Cup. Yeah, of course, Japan, you would say they are favorites to do so. But me, I really rate that performance. I know that it wasn't pretty against Palestine. Guess what? Newsflash. Palestine are really good. That is not the L result that some of you guys think it is. It's not up to Korean standard, but it's not a disaster. So we got to stop talking about it as if it was. So yeah, I think keeping Korea at 3 is fair. In second, having a big jump is Australia. I'm going to be honest, y'all. Australia are back. The Socceroos are back. They beat both Japan and Saudi Arabia in this round of qualifying. And not only that, they didn't lose a single freaking game in 4 matches against those 2 teams. Not only did they not lose a single game, they allowed, 1 goal from open play? And that was the Saudi Arabia game. Away in Riyadh when Saudi Arabia had to go for it. Nah, man, Australia, look, these guys, I think they're going to be terrifying at the World Cup. This is my thesis, and I'm going to ride with it for 2026. A lot of people will disagree with me about this because it's not pretty football, but prettiness does not equate to strength. Because if it was prettiness of football, I guess Palestine would be top 5. If it was prettiness of football, then Iraq would be in the depths of hell. If it was entertainment, then Qatar might be the best team in Asia. It is a mixture of results and performance. Australia, performance-wise, are not as bad as some of y'all say, and results-wise, they were great. They shut down Japan twice. Nobody else can do that. And when we're talking about playing non-AFC teams, who looks like they could give Germany a better game? Or Portugal a better game? Morocco, Nigeria. Ooh, I was talking about big teams. They might not make the World Cup. Ivory Coast. Is it Australia? Is it South Korea? Or is it Iran? I'm going to go with Australia. If you want to go South Korea or Iran, again, I don't think there's a ton separating these 2 teams. I don't think you're an idiot. I don't think you have zero ball knowledge. I understand. But I'm backing the Socceroos in this. Even if we talk about the problems with these 3 teams and what their weaknesses are, we can go through each one at a time. What's Iran's weakness? Well, their defense is trash and their goalkeeper's washed. How do you fix that? I don't really know. You got to get in new players. Are they even good? We don't know. Will the manager even do that? How is that going to be resolved in the next 10 months before the World Cup? If we look at Korea, well, I think technically they're very good. They have huge depth issues at the left back position. They don't know if Cho's the right goalkeeper for the World Cup. I think he fell off in this last cycle. Who's going to be the CDM? Park Young-woo is not a good holding midfielder. What the heck is going on to the striker? What's even going on with Sung Ho-min now that he's gone back to MLS? There's a lot of question marks. Where Korea is strong, they're strong. Just like Iran, they got some beasts in the attack, man. Midfield is still solid. I still think Esatolahi and Godos are good players. But man, oh man, that defense cannot keep a clean sheet. Meanwhile, you look at Australia and what's the biggest weakness? They don't have a clinical striker and they don't really have a 10. I don't really see that as a huge issue. Australia doesn't need an amazing 10 to be good. That's not how Popovich wants to play ball. That is a luxury. So I think even from a weaknesses ranked standpoint, I still think Australia has the best weakness, if you want to say it that way. And lastly, number 1, I do have Japan, even though I don't think it was a great qualifying cycle for them. 1 win in 4 games against Australia and Saudi Arabia is pretty bad, right? The counter to that is if you look at how Japan plays against the B and C tier teams in Asia, nobody is as good as Japan at not just beating them, but humiliating them and making players consider retirement. They're just lethal against those caliber of teams. Now, on the flip side, when we've seen Japan play non-AFC teams recently, they are good. They beat Spain at the World Cup. They beat Germany twice. They got Hansi Flick fired from Germany, for God's sake, away in Germany. They beat Turkey. They beat Canada in friendlies. They have demonstrated they can get it done outside of the federation. For some reason, they struggle inside of Asia. I don't know if that's arrogance. I don't know if it's all eyes on the World Cup and they just don't care about qualifiers or the Asian Cup, which I hope that's not the case, because these are big deals. These are some of my favorite things as a footy fan to watch. But regardless, they need to be a bit more ruthless inside Asia. I would say that Japan leveled up from 2022 to 2026, but since like match day 6, they stagnated. Fortunately for Japan, Iran also stagnated. I think South Korea were also slightly better, but not enough to overtake Japan. And Australia, they're not better than Japan. They're just hard as hell to beat. In my opinion, Japan really has to have a disastrous campaign, and Iran, South Korea, or Australia have to ball out for Japan to fall out of that one spot. And it's not impossible. Japan's going to have a ton of pressure. I don't know if they can handle it, because they certainly couldn't handle it at the Asian Cup when they got body bagged by Iran. But anyways, guys, that is my list. That is the top 20 Asian nations ranked. Wow, this was a beast of a video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, smash the like button. I know that you guys are going to disagree with this list, violently so. Some people have blocked me. Some people have already composed nasty tweets about me and my beliefs about Asian footy. My favorite is also the, like, you don't know what you're talking about with no elaboration. Those are just gold comments, man. As a content creator, we love to see those. It just really brightens up my day. But anyways, there will be another edition of this ranking probably after the Asian Cup qualification and round 4 is complete. So make sure you're subscribed for that. Again, I got the Asian players ranked coming out. We have watch-alongs for round 4, predictions for round 4, all the way up to the World Cup, man. So much AFC content here on the channel. Stick around for that. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I appreciate it for watching, and I will see y'all in the next one.